There we go. And it looks like everybody can see me now too. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. Welcome to KETIV Virtual Academy. Today's session is hosted by Tom Fitzgerald, and we will be discussing Vault Echo routings. We're so glad that you're here. Please be sure to leave us feedback after the session. It helps us create new content and create content that you actually want to see. So be sure to fill out the survey that pops up on your screen. I wanted to invite you to our upcoming Manufacturing Leaders Exchange. I went ahead and dropped the link in the chat. You can also scan this QR code with your phone if you're watching on your computer. This is an opportunity for you to meet with fellow business and technical leaders. Our upcoming session is going to be on Wednesday. It's in San Jose, California. So if you're in the Bay Area, be sure to join us. This is a completely free event, and it starts at 4 o'clock in San Jose on Wednesday. So check it out. If this is your first KVA, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. And if you're a returning learner, welcome back. We're here to help you revitalize your business and digitally transform. So be sure to message us if there's anything that we can do to help you. We will have our email and phone number listed on the end of the screen if you would like more in-depth training. Okay, and I'm going to let Tom take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's KVA. I'm Tom Fitzgerald, and today we're going to be talking about Vault Professional change order routings. So just the routings within change order and why these are beneficial and what we can do with these routings. All right. So first off, my name is Tom Fitzgerald. You all know me. I'm a senior technical executive here at KETIV. Been at KETIV for a little over 2 years. Previous to that, I was at Autodesk for 10 years as a solution architect, implementation consultant, serving a number of different roles at Autodesk, supporting our manufacturing customers. I've been working within 3D design for 25 plus years and within the manufacturing industry for over 30 years. I'm also a U.S. Army veteran, and in my free time, I do a lot of studying and research around World War II history. So enough about me. Let's get into what we're going to be talking about today. So what are change orders relative to what we do inside of Autodesk Vault? We want to learn a little bit around roles and responsibilities, because really it kind of depends on what your role is, what responsibilities you have, what kind of permissions you have, and how you interact within that change order process. And then from there, we'll be able to understand a little bit more around how to develop routing lists and how to consume them and some of the details around those routing lists. All right. So let's get into it. So here at KETIV, we do a lot of different things. We support our customers in many different ways, from sales engineering and automation around the sales process with our partnership with Tacton CPQ. We also work a lot with our design and CAD departments, right? And our engineering departments in terms of using some of the authoring tools for engineering and design, and how can we automate some of those processes? How can we make things a little easier for you guys in regards to what your responsibilities are within design and engineering? We also have a partner, ANSYS, really focuses on simulation and testing, as well as what we can do around advanced manufacturing. Now, what I love so much about this slide, guys, is not only does it illustrate, the different capabilities that we have here at Vault or at KETIV, but really highlights what Vault can do for you, what a data management solution can do for you in terms of the fact that it really integrates and lies and lives within all of these different areas in manufacturing. If we think about what we do within sales engineering and design and out on the shop floor even, it's all about data. We're either consuming data, or we're creating data, or we're modifying data. So how do we get our hands around all that? By leveraging a system or a tool, application like Autodesk Vault can really help with some of the struggles and frustrations that we have in terms of finding information, and then having that high level of confidence that what we do find is exactly what we need to answer the questions that we're trying to solve, right? So what are change orders? So in the world of Vault, change orders are basically a way for us to be able to control or even manage the change management process, right? It's a way for us to describe why we need to make a change, how we make a change or when we might need to make a change. So we need to store or collect all this information around the change and the kind of change that's going, or the kind of impact that that change is going to make. So change orders are a way for us to be able to manage that. It's a mechanism to try to control what we do around change within our business, particularly in the context of what we're talking about today, really around design and engineering. Okay. So change order state. So the state of a change order, and we'll talk about this here in a little bit more thoroughly, but the state of the change order can help us track the progression. So was a change order just initiated? Is it in the review state? Is it more of a work in progress state? Is it in a release state? You know, who needs to interact with these change orders? Who needs to either confirm or reject change orders based upon particular information? So roles and responsibilities. The state of a change can determine which users can affect the change. So once again, if I'm an end user or if I'm a manager, I might have different responsibilities in terms of, once again, approving or denying or rejecting a change order, right? Change orders use routing lists to control which users are notified when a change order is created or as it progresses through its life cycle. So this is really the focus of what we're going to be talking about today, is those routing lists. So change orders, why are we making a change? What is it going to impact? And when should we be doing it? So those are the key elements around what we want to encompass or capture within a change order. Okay. So roles and responsibilities, who can do what? So inside of Vault, we have roles and responsibilities. So permissions, a security model. Each person that can access Vault has a user account where we typically assign them a role. They can check in, they can check out, but they can't delete. They can look at content center information or edit content center information, or they can't. Maybe they can create additional users, or maybe as an administrator, or maybe they're just going there to review information. They can't check in and check out at all. They can only look at information. So we have many different roles inside of Vault, and combination of roles that provide different levels of permission and control over our users. Within change orders, within the change order editor, we have additional roles and responsibilities that are very specific to change orders. So looking on the left-hand side of the slide, we have different routing roles. So approvers, change administrators, change requesters, checkers, notification users, reviewers, and responsible engineers. Okay. And then, of course, the corresponding definition on the right-hand side. If I'm an approver, I can review, approve, and reject a change order, plain and simple. If I'm a change administrator, I can add and remove approvers, change administrators, or roles or responsible engineers. So I can start dictating who can be responsible for change orders, okay? So approvers, they're just a part of the process. Change administrators really can kind of start orchestrating who needs to be responsible. When do they need to interact with the change order? A change administrator can also cancel a change order, whereas an approver can only, once again, review, approve, or reject. They can't cancel it, okay? Change requesters, these are participants that can initiate a change order and then automatically becomes a reviewer. So they can kick it off and then they can review it, but they can't approve or reject it, okay? We have checkers. Now, this is more of a transient role, if you will. Checkers are only involved when we define a routing list, that we also define that there's going to be a checker involved. So a little bit of flexibility here. You could have a process where you don't have to worry about a checker of a change order. Maybe those individuals that are initiators and administrators and approvers, maybe they do their jobs well enough, or that's enough of individuals to be able to understand, is this a valid change order? Is all the information there? We don't need that, say, fourth set of eyes to be able to check a change order to make sure that it's appropriate and valid and everything else. So that's one of those roles that can be there or cannot be there, and I'll highlight this when we get into the demonstration here. A notification user only receives a notification if a change order is closed. So you may have a manager that wants to have that awareness to some of the activities within change orders. Notification user would be a perfect role for that individual. Maybe they're not participating in the change order process so much. Responsible engineers can edit the change order, make necessary revisions, or submit a change order for review. So they have a responsibility in terms of some of the content, context, and some of the details around change orders as well. So you have your approvers that can review, approve, and reject. Your responsible engineers are really those individuals that are providing some of the meat to a change order, okay? And then reviewers can only view, add, and reply to comments, okay? So kind of hands off, they can see it, they're visible, they have visibility to it, but they really can't do much with it. They're more of that third party, that additional set of eyes, just kind of making sure everything is working the way it should be working. And with having that reviewer, in most cases, the checker role isn't nearly as important, okay? So it really kind of depends on your company, your process. In a lot of cases, when we engage with customers to implement Vault, we'd like to know how you're currently doing things. If your current process aligns with the strengths of Autodesk Vault, then we'll try to replicate that process. But in some instances, a lot of instances, quite honestly, some of the features and capabilities within Vault are greater than the processes that you currently have in place. So I always challenge our customers to revisit their processes to make sure, hey, why are we doing this in the first place? And is there a better way to be doing this? And should we do it differently now that we have some capability and functionality that Vault provides us that we otherwise wouldn't have, okay? So some routing list facts, some very specific details around routing lists themselves. So change administrators and responsible engineers, as I stated before, have the greatest range of permissions. So these are the two roles that you really want to give your power users, or those individuals that have a lot of control over what happens with change orders, okay? Before you create a change order, you have to make sure that there's a routing that has been created by the administrator. Now, out of the box with Vault, there is a default routing. However, it's just like a placeholder, if you will. There's not a lot of detail there. So when you decide that you want to do change orders, step number one, make sure you have roles and responsibilities identified. You know, what users are going to be working with the change orders. And then once you have those roles and responsibilities set up from their user accounts, go ahead and then we start making our routing list and then start assigning additional roles to the routing list. And we're going to get into that here in just a moment. The routing should contain everyone that needs to review, be responsible for, and approve the change order. So as you go through building out your routing list, make sure that you're really highlighting your responsible engineers, your change administrators, and your reviewers. So that way you're making sure that all the right people are looking at these change orders. Lastly here, routing lists may be edited as needed by the change administrator, okay? Even after the change order has been created. So say, for instance, you create a routing list, you create a change order, you realize that you forgot somebody, or maybe there's too many people on that routing list, you can make modifications to that even while the change order is in its process. And an administrator can also add and remove approvers, change administrators, and responsible engineers. So like I stated, you know, even if you do create that, don't worry, you can go and make modifications as that change order is going through its process to make sure that you're communicating appropriately to those responsible individuals. All right. So some rules around routing lists before we get into the demonstration. So when a change order is created, you have to specify a routing. So that's, you know, part of the process. Create the roles and responsibilities, create the routing list, create the change order, and then point to the particular routing list you want to leverage or want to use. And we're going to show that here. Depending on the state of the change order, anyone on the routing can add another reviewer. Okay, remember, reviewers are they're only seeing what's going on. They're not really interacting too much with the change order itself. Okay, so anyone can add another reviewer except the notification user, because really they're only going to get a message if that change order is canceled, right? So notification users real low on the totem pole in terms of roles and responsibilities within change orders. The administrator, change administrator, and responsible engineer can add and remove approvers and change administrators. So once again, administrators, change administrators, and responsible engineers have the utmost power and control over what's going on with your change order. So be diligent in terms of assigning those roles and responsibilities, making sure you have the right people in the right roles as you proceed and progress, okay? And lastly, only the administrator, change administrator, and responsible engineer can remove a reviewer. So if we look at bullet point number 2, anybody can add a reviewer, only certain individuals can remove a reviewer, okay? Just to be clear there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into Vault here so we can look at a couple things relative to change orders and routing lists more specifically. All right, one of the first things that we want to recognize here and understand is really around security and permission. So here inside of Vault, go to Administration, Global Settings. And on the Global Settings dialog box is really where we're going to see a lot of the information that we need to be aware of. So first thing, underneath users and groups, right, we need to make sure that we have different accounts. Those user accounts are set up with the appropriate permissions. I created a couple of accounts here, change order boss, change order reviewer, and I've given them some permissions in terms of being able to work with and affect the change orders. Even the change order boss here has item editor and change order editor. Some of these are required in order to make sure that we can fully complement the change order in terms of the information involved, as well as those individuals that are going to be responsible for that change order, okay? So once we have our account set up, making sure that we have everybody with the appropriate permissions, up here on the dialog box, we still have another tab here called Change Orders. We can select the Change Orders button here, and this is where we're going to be able to define our routings, right? So we have a couple options here. We can create a standard workflow or a workflow with that check state. And remember, going back to the PowerPoint there, that checker role was, like I said, transient, meaning if you select a routing list that has a check state, then you can use that checker account. You have that extra state within your life cycles. However, if you use standard, you won't have that. So in this case, I'm just going to check. I'm going to click on check state just to kind of show you something here. So define, I've created this routing right here for the check state. I'm going to create another one here in a second just so we can see. But you can create as many routings as you need, depending on, like I said before, the information relative to those people that are interacting with the Vault. They may be engineers, they may be designers, they could be administrative people, they could be people working out on the shop floor, right? So we want to make sure that we're including, creating the list to include the right people based on the type of information that we're putting inside of the Vault. So once you create a routing, they're going to be up here on the left-hand side. But to make them active, make them visible where you can use them, you have to make sure that you push them over here to the right-hand side. And it's nothing more than just dragging and dropping. So now I have my KVA routing is active on the right-hand side. If I want that to be default, I can select it and set that as default. And now that's going to be my default routing going forward. Any additional routings that I create that appear on the active routing side over here, we'll be able to select those as we create the change order, okay? So I'm going to select OK here. Just to kind of show you what that looks like in terms of creating those routings, I'm going to create a standard routing here. I'm going to select Define. I'm going to select New, and this is going to allow me then to start adding my participants to my routing list. If I want my CO boss here, I can just say Add. Now that I have him that individual coordinated with my routing list, I need to start providing some roles, some permissions here. So I want my CO boss to be the change administrator. I also want them to be the approver and a notification user. Okay, so I'm going to select OK. Same thing with my reviewer. You'll notice as I start including individuals to participate in the change order routing, they get removed from the left-hand side and now they're on the right-hand side. So I'm going to add my CO reviewer, obviously a reviewer, notification user, and perhaps even a responsible engineer. Okay, so I have my participants set up here. I'm going to select OK. And I have to provide a routing name. How about that? So I'm just going to call this test and then select OK. This is a warning that comes up. The routing is not appropriate to work with items. To work with items, the change administrator or responsible engineer must have item editor level 2 or administrator assigned. Do you want to keep the current configuration and continue? Now, this is just a warning. This is not going to inhibit you from doing or using this routing list. This is just making you aware that if you are using items, there may be some complications in regards to working with change orders. Easily satisfy this. You can go to, if I just go back in here and say edit, I can add the administrator here. The administrator obviously has those particular permissions. So I'm just going to make them a notification user and hit OK. And now I hit OK. And I'm just going to, nope, I'm going to say no here. Actually, I'm going to edit the roles of the administrator. I'm going to make sure that they are also not just a notification user, but a change administrator, and then hit OK. And this time I'm going to say yes. Okay, so now I have my routing list set up. On the left-hand side, I want to make sure that it's active, and I'm going to select that and make sure that that is set at default as well. Okay. So now that I've created my different routing lists, I've coordinated my different users, their roles, responsibilities, gave the routing lists a name. Now what I can do is when I go into my change order environment, I can easily access that simply by clicking this button in the lower left-hand corner. I'm going to get into my change order environment where I can start seeing the different change orders that I've created previously. Or if I want to create a new change order, upper left-hand corner here, select new, and it's going to bring up my change order dialog box, okay? And this is where I can just go through the different tabs of providing a number, a title, description, start adding some files and records, applying some comments, so on and so forth. But this is where we can define our routing. So any routings that I've created that have been set up a particular way, either using the check state or the non-check state, those are then going to be made available here. I created that test routing list that isn't a part of the check state, so I have that available and I can select that. By selecting that, my participants are going to show up here. If I select default, you'll see only administrator. So it's picking up on that list. So this initial list that I'm going to use for this change order. Once I have everything satisfied, I can hit save. If I have all the information, and then I can close this. And now my change order is going to appear on my change order list. Now, earlier in the conversation or in the webinar here, I brought up the fact that the change order routings can be changed at any time. Now, obviously, I can go to the routing list and make changes there. However, if I want to make a change to a specific change order, all I have to do is right-click on that change order once it's been created. And I have this option called Edit Routing. So I can edit the routing here. And if there's any additional routings that I want to add, I can do that here. Or I can right-click and just say Edit, at which point I can go to Routing. And I can say Edit here, and I can start adding some individuals to that routing as necessary. So there's a couple different ways to edit that routing. I can edit the list, or I can just edit the ECO at that particular point, start adding participants as necessary. Now, remember what we talked about earlier, there's only certain individuals with certain responsibilities that can add people, and even less individuals with certain responsibilities that can remove people. So a lot easier to add people to the routing as opposed to removing people from the routing. Once all of this is set up, we have our change order, and then of course now it's going to go through that that life cycle. So if I select this just real quick, I just want to point out why routings are so important. And it really has to do with the status, right? If we think about how we create change orders, it's in an open state, it goes to a work state, a review state, and we can reject that or we can approve that. Routings really have to do and align with this status. Who is responsible for the change order in the open state? Who is responsible for that change order in the work state, in the review state, in the approved state? So mind your workflow here, and that's going to assist you in understanding the individuals that need to be included within this routing list. So with that being said, let's go back over to the PowerPoint. So in summary, when it comes to working with change order routings provide that flexibility for ensuring that the right people are responsible for managing change within a particular design. So as you need to make a change to design, if something's already released out there, it's being manufactured and you need to make a change to that. Maybe there's some failure on out in the field and you need to accommodate for that. Well, you're going to want to revise that design, initiate a change order, include those files, and of course, define that routing list to make sure certain individuals are participating within that routing, okay? Highlighting change order routings can be changed once created. So even after the change order is created, you can go and manipulate that routing list. And then, of course, be very cognizant as to the roles and responsibilities. Those individuals that have to do certain tasks within that change order routing, ensuring that those individuals are assigned the right roles and responsibilities, so that way you can ensure that change orders are being accommodated appropriately. All right. And that is everything for today's KVA. We're now going to open it up for Q&A. If you have any questions, any comments, or if you want to dig in a little bit more thoroughly as to some of the elements within Autodesk Vault Professional and change order routings, here is your opportunity. Drop a message here in the chat or the Q&A. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Here's your chance, guys. Go ahead and let us know if you have any questions or comments. Not seeing anything directly within the Q&A or the chat. But truly appreciate your time today and understanding more around ECO routings. And as usual, if you have any questions or comments, you know how to get a hold of us. Either reach out on our 1-800 line or drop us an email, shoot us a chat or a text or anything, and then get a hold of us, and we'll be more than happy to help you out with any of your engineering and design needs, anything around data management or anything else. All right, we got something in here from Patrick O'Malley. Is there an advantage to doing ECOs in Vault Pro as opposed to an ERP system? That's a really good question, Patrick. As a matter of fact, it really kind of depends. If you're talking about, specific engineering information, you have another dedicated system like an ERP that can do those types of things. Really, the focus is ensuring that a change is being handled correctly. So obviously, if there's an ECO inside of Vault, and you need to manage, say, like a revision number or a revision letter within the file, you can trigger certain revision events with those ECOs to automatically update some of those properties. If you're not doing those things inside of Vault, Patrick, obviously you're either going to need to do some sort of integration to synchronize that property information, and or have it set up as a manual activity. So if you're transitioning or using an ECO process within an ERP system, and then you need to update a revision number in your Vault, obviously, without having some sort of automated or interoperability between the two systems, that's going to have to be a manual process. So it really kind of depends on what your comfortability is in terms of integrating those two systems, being able to handle that manual process. But ideally, you would want to, if it's critical to have that file property information updated appropriately, I would probably rely upon the Vault Pro ECO process as opposed to your ERP system. All right, any other questions? Nothing else? That's it. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. Really, truly appreciate it. And as I stated before, if you have any additional questions, do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you.